The Haunting of Hill House is one of the most acclaimed new shows in contention at the Emmys this year. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby, here with Timothy Hutton, who plays Patriarch Ukraine. Tim, you are a past Emmy nominee and Oscar winner. How does this role stand out in your 4 decades long career?
Well, it was a very interesting role to do, a great group of people to work with, very interesting process in terms of how we went about the work and rehearsals and everything, particularly in the episode number 6. And it just was it was a really kind of interesting and challenging and fun, exciting way to get into a role because of the rehearsal process and because Hugh Crane was being played by 2 people. So Henry and I had an interesting time along with Mike Flanagan sort of mapping out who this character was and where he might be in the earlier part of his life when the children were younger, and where the character might be as he's older, and sort of how to come up with behavior characteristics, etc., to kind of try to define who he is in this piece as a whole.
And why is Hugh played by 2 actors? We see on TV a lot these days, like Mandy Moore on This Is Us, where she'll play the same character over decades, or Mahershala Ali on True Detective. Why have you and Henry Thomas playing Hugh?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was amazing to be able to work with Henry Thomas in that way, even though, except for 2 times, the camera caught us both in the same frame. I think it was 2 times. Mike Flanagan would know better, but it just was. It was great to be able to approach it, and there's another actor that's going to be playing the role in a different time frame, and it gives you the opportunity. I mean, I don't know what the reason is behind why those choices are made, but as far as for the actor, it's a very interesting way to go about a role. Especially if the director is very encouraging, which Mike was, of having Henry and I sort of discuss with him who this person is and how could plant the seed early in terms of how this character might react to things and put a lid on other things, reveal things early, not reveal things early, call back to certain behavioral things, physical traits, etc. Not just what the person looks like, but how they move and how they look at people, etc. So I don't know. I think for a director, my guess is that it's just a interesting way to kind of engage the audience with 2 different people who are playing the same role, and sometimes it can be actually the same actor playing a role at different times in a life. It can be distracting because you're looking at makeup and you're seeing how the person was aged, etc. If it's 2 different people and they kind of have worked, they already sort of look in the general ballpark, they kind of look alike or whatever, they could look alike, and then, as I said, you work out how they are in terms of behavior. It can be an interesting process. I think for a director, that may be why those choices are made.
And what do you think Hugh was up to in between the past and the present storylines?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, what Hugh what Hugh is up to is probably just a lot of thinking, a lot of guilt, a lot of running over what happened with the different events in the house. I think a lot of remorse, a lot of sadness about missing his kids, and particularly, not particularly, but in addition to, just as strongly, his wife, played by Carla. And so I think, he's probably up to just a lot of, thinking about the different events. He was blamed, of course, for a lot of things that happened, and he kind of ran away from it all. And now in the story, when he emerges as the older Hugh, he gets asked by all of his kids different questions about how things happened. And I think he was prepared for that a little bit, but maybe didn't have the communication skills to go along with it.
Do you think when we see Hugh talking to his wife, that's like actually the ghost of his wife, or is it a manifestation of his subconscious?
I think it's a manifestation of his subconscious, what you just said. I don't think it's a ghost, but it could be a ghost. I think it's one of those open-ended things. It could be both. It could be that he creates a ghost in his own mind. But I think that he honestly believes that her presence is there and he can actually hear her and see her. And he's completely unaware that other people are watching him speak to her in their presence.
Now, in the finale, we see that great montage where it shows all the characters in the Red Room, but we don't really see Hugh in there, and we never see him go in the Red Room uh, across the season unless it's like explicitly stated. What do you think was in his version of it?
You know, he probably looked at. I'm sure he looks at the Red Room as just an extremely dangerous place to be, and that embodies everything that went wrong. It all starts there, and it's sort of like that's where the single germ became this massive kind of you know illness, virus, disease that started to get into the heads and get into the minds of all the children, both when they were young and later when they're older. I think that he certainly he's afraid of the Red Room. He doesn't know what's in there. He'd rather not know what's in there. So his curiosity about the house, I think, ends at that door because he knows that whatever's on the other side of it is just more powerful than he can ever understand. And of course, when he communicates that to his kids, that only makes them more interested in going in there.
Yeah, I have one more question about the finale. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's best show of the year. But when he dies, like how does he die, and how does that ending sit with you for the character?
I think he dies of a broken heart. I mean, I think he dies of he certainly has real heart problems. And I think that the kind of reunion with his kids and all of the energy and all of the sort of the trauma of explanation, the trauma of reliving and explaining what happened takes its toll on him, especially when at the end in the finale when he is with his wife and choices have to be made and she has certain expectations how the rest of time will be and he has a different idea of how it will be, and one involves saving. I mean, I shouldn't say too much if you haven't seen the show, but I'll let you know. But I think you asked how he dies. I think he dies of absolute exhaustion and trauma of a love that can't continue, not just with his wife, but in his entire family and everything that he hoped life would be.
So I have the very basic question of how did you get the part?
Well, I'm not sure how that happened, actually. I think that it was, I know that there was a time before it started filming that I was made aware of it, as everybody was. I read about it. I read about it online and something that Mike Flanagan was gonna make it, and I thought that it was a really interesting idea, and I was curious about it. So usually, what happens is you then call up, the agent or whatever, and say, "What do you know about this project?" or that kind of thing. And I'm not sure how this happened. I think Mike Flanagan and I had a conversation. I expressed interest, and then I wanted to be a part of it, and so it kind of went from there. I just thought it would be a really interesting, approach to the material, and he was putting together a very interesting cast, and to play a role like this, I thought was just all the different factors that go into it. So usually, what happens, you have a conversation, and then that leads to another conversation, and then dates are worked out, and all that kind of thing, and Yeah.
For the Emmys, Netflix is campaigning you as a supporting actor and Henry Thomas as a lead actor. Do they have conversations with you about that?
No, I mean, I think that they just sort of look at the whole thing and they decide, how does it all kind of work with what they're trying to do. And this is a big cast, and you know, it's it's not a conversation. It's not something I don't think that the actors are really ever part of. That's more left to other people.
All right. What about for Ordinary People, where you have one of the largest roles ever to win supporting category? Do you think that you should have been put in lead, or is that just fine?
Well, after all these years, I can safely say that maybe it's good that I wasn't, because Robert De Niro was nominated that year for Raging Bull. No, but kidding aside, that's something that I've been asked before, and certainly back then, they looked at someone who wasn't known. If an actor wasn't known and they were kind of new to a film, or new to people's awareness, then they would kind of it didn't matter how large a part they played. They would be kind of in the supporting role in terms of nominations and all that kind of thing, or they would do it based on billing. If the person was, third or fourth or fifth billed, then that there was a sort of this idea that they were a supporting role. In the case of Ordinary People, certainly the character was, throughout the film, and I understand the question definitely, but it worked out pretty good. I mean, I had nothing to do with those kinds of decisions, and even at the time, it didn't occur to me that maybe it should be a different category. I just was excited that they were even going to have that kind of approach in terms of nominations and all that, and that the film was even being considered in discussion about nominations. So I don't know how all that all breaks out, but I certainly understand why people would think that maybe that role could have been a different category.
If you are nominated, you'll have to submit a single episode from the season as a showcase of your best work. Do you have an episode in mind, or have a scene that you remember that was particularly a standout in terms of your performance?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I mean, I think the episode 6 is a really interesting episode. I think just across the board for the story and for everyone. I'm trying to remember. I mean, there's for the character from episode 6 on, because he really kind of enters the story from 6 on. I mean, he's in episode 1 and 5, I believe, but you just sort of meet him a little bit. But I mean, from 6 on, he's kind of on a mission to try to reconnect with his kids and sort of, bring the family back together. There are episodes 7 and 8, the finale certainly. I don't think older Hugh Crane is in 9, but I don't know. I mean, I would leave that up to the good people at Netflix.
So we also saw you this year on Jack Ryan and How to Get Away with Murder. Are you returning in seasons 2 and or 3 of Jack Ryan?
No. The season 2 of Jack Ryan was filming at the same time that I was doing Haunting a Hill House and another project. So I couldn't do Jack Ryan. And the character really wasn't a character that needed to continue story-wise. I very much liked working on Jack Ryan and with John Krasinski, and producers are friends of mine, and it was great working with Wendell Pierce and everyone. But that's just something that couldn't work out. And then on How to Get Away with Murder, I'm not sure and what's going to happen in terms of the character in the future on that. And I've been asked to kind of not speculate because there's some interesting surprises ahead regarding that show.
Okay. What was your reaction to kind of playing the big bad of the season on How to Get Away with Murder?
Well, I mean, it's fun. Anytime you play a role like that, where, it's the character might be the one who, did something and is a suspect. It's always fun to play that kind of character. And that was a great group of people to work with. And I got to do most of my work with Viola Davis, and that was really amazing. And the different directors on the show. So yeah, it was. I'm not sure, where that character is going to go, but I'll know soon.
All right. Well, we look forward to watching you on our screens, and thanks very much for joining. And to our viewers, you can go to Gold Derby and log your Emmy predictions, and also you can subscribe to this channel.
All right. Thanks a lot.